From the very beginning, the legend of Rune arts, a sacred power said to have existed since the dawn of humanity, unfolds as a group of formidable, rune-marked individuals stand united, their auras blazing with mystical energy and determination. Beneath a stormy sky alive with blue lightning and swirling energy, the narrative introduces those destined by fate to be born wielding the power of rune arts. A lone, powerful figure floated in a storm of supernatural energy, ruling over all creation with forces that nature. As a commanding ruler sat high upon the throne, surrounded by rows of bowing subjects, their absolute dominion over all things was depicted in a scene of regal reverence. Under the overwhelming dominion of a colossal presence, ancient humanity knelt in awe and fear, reaching out as a massive hand descended from the heavens to claim them. Praised rune arts were once seen as a blessing bestowed by the gods, a miracle, they called it, but now a sense of unease lingers beneath that reverence. Amidst the endless array of enigmatic runes, a single, unparalleled symbol emerged, its presence underscored by the ominous form of a shadowy, multi-armed deity meditating atop a lotus and clutching mystic relics. A singular, infamous rune, branded as a curse, emerges in the darkness, its presence amplified by the watchful, masked faces shrouded in shadow. A lone man stands resolute before the massive, ominous rune carved into the glowing red wall, his determination evident as he confronts the mysterious symbol in the foreboding silence. Amidst the raging storm, the resilient, tattooed man stood defiantly, his battered body pierced by countless projectiles as he endured the onslaught without yielding. With urgency in their voice, one figure resolutely insisted that they should let the panicked fugitive escape, as the blurred form dashed away into the distance. The furious mob leader, his face twisted with rage, shouted at the unseen target that they were never to show themselves in this place again, while the rest of the mob brandished torches and spears, their collective hostility driving the message home. Amid the relentless blizzard, a solitary figure pushes desperately onward through the desolate mountain, embodying both isolation and determination against the unforgiving elements. Through the swirling snow, a gravely injured man, impaled by black spikes and driven by sheer desperation, forced himself to stagger onward in a desperate struggle for survival. Amid the somber silence, an unidentified figure remains lifeless and still, sprawled across the snow in the aftermath of a fall beneath the pale sunlight filtering through the forest. Panicked and fleeing across the snowy landscape, the terrified witnesses cried out in horror that the figure before them could not possibly be human, and that he was drenched in blood. A battered man's bloodied face fills the panel as he endures the aftermath of a brutal fight, his determined gaze revealing an unbreakable resolve amidst desperation. Amid the desperate urgency, the man anxiously instructed, and Honey to stop the bleeding quickly and use rune arts, while the two girls focused intently, channeling their magic to try and save the wounded person. Standing at the edge of the darkness, the lone figure offered determined reassurance to those nearby, insisting that there was no need for concern. 7 years later, an unseen, panicked figure cried out in desperation that they knew nothing, their voice tense with fear and denial. Amidst the peaceful rural village, daily life unfolded quietly as villagers moved about with contentment and calm, each absorbed in their own routines beneath the gentle tranquility of the day. Two furious villagers confronted the outsider, with the man demanding to know why the rune of Usura would be in such an unlikely place, while the woman insisted that, since their tiny village had already been turned inside out, the stranger should just leave. Irritated, the bald man insisted that they were leaving and grumbled about how loud the older people were, while the group of elders and their followers retreated into the woods with a mix of resignation and unease. Two intimidating men loomed above, their cold, hostile stares and menacing gestures creating an overwhelming sense of threat for the girl beneath them. On the tense forest path, the hooded figure authoritatively called out for someone to come over, prompting one of the surprised companions to respond in confusion while the silent observer watched alertly. In a scene drenched in horror and panic, the mortally wounded man cried out in agony while the terrified girl, overcome with fear, screamed desperately for her brother beside him as blood sprayed across the red-lit room. As the cloaked figure collapsed in a pool of shadows, Their attacker taunted them with a smug warning that finding anyone without rune arts or mana would be impossible, deepening the sense of desperation and dread in the air. A monstrous, hooded man with blood-stained claws sensed a hidden presence, his malicious awareness radiating through the sinister gloom. A foreboding, dark aura radiates ominously against the blackness, filling the air with the stench of utter destruction. Amidst the tranquil mountain landscape, a relieved figure announced to Ban and that the danger had passed and urged them to come out of hiding. Emerging from their confinement beneath the tree, the exuberant girl exclaimed with joy how refreshing the outside air felt, while the exhausted man expressed his relief as he crawled into the sunlight alongside her. A concerned man apologized for causing trouble by bringing unusual people around, but the confident, cheerful man reassured him that no one in the group minded such things, putting him at ease. With a playful glint in her eye, the cheerful girl teased her two friends about being covered in dust again, leaving them both happy yet slightly embarrassed by her light-hearted remark. With a curious glint in her eyes, the confident girl smiled knowingly and teasingly pointed out that the others were always hiding down here, clearly amused by their secretive behavior. As they strolled together through the sun-dappled forest, the cheerful girl enthusiastically shared with the calm man that she really liked the place, her happiness lighting up the moment as he listened with quiet thoughtfulness. As the three stood beneath the towering ancient tree, the girl reflected with gratitude that this was the very place where she had been saved 7 years ago. A reflective man gazed upward in the tranquil forest and peacefully shared that this spot was his favorite in the entire village. In a playful exchange within the sun-dappled forest clearing, the man affectionately scolded one of the girls, prompting her to complain that she was being picked on, while the other girl, looking concerned, called out for help from their parents. In a light-hearted atmosphere beneath the forest canopy, one cheerful woman asked how the wedding preparations were going, to which another responded contentedly that everything was ready, and the event would begin as soon as the sun set, while playful banter and anticipation filled the group. The group erupted in enthusiastic agreement, their voices echoing with excitement as they eagerly anticipated the adventure that awaited them. In the darkness of night, a foreboding glow emerges from the distant forest, casting an ominous light over the silent mountains. A large crowd assembled solemnly in the forest clearing, their collective voices rising in a somber chant as the funeral pyre blazed at the heart of the ceremony. With unwavering resolve, the young man publicly declared that a ban would be enacted, his determined gaze fixed forward as sweat beaded on his face under the dramatic lighting. Bathed in warm light, a serene girl with vibrant orange hair and a delicate leaf crown is revealed. Her name is. With a proud smile, the officiant declared the couple officially married and invited them to share their vows before the assembled crowd. With determined conviction, the charismatic leader shouted to the ecstatic crowd that he promised to make them so happy they would be moved to tears, igniting an eruption of joyful cheers and celebration beneath the evening sky. In the dimly lit forest, the girl with the flower crown bowed her head and with a regretful voice admitted to the group that she was sorry for causing so many hardships, while her companion listened in sympathetic silence. Every village the narrator passed through was ravaged by plague, war, and disaster, with screams of pain and despair trailing wherever they went. Amidst the hellish red glow, the lone man stood his ground, defiant as monstrous hands surged toward him from every direction. Haunted by an unshakable restlessness, the narrator reflects on a life spent unable to find a place to truly belong. Reflecting on the past, the narrator recalls that everything changed because they were taken in 7 years ago. As a severely injured man lay unconscious on a blood-soaked bed, a desperate girl urgently instructed others to stop the bleeding and fetch warm water, while a worried man reacted with disbelief and concern when the patient suddenly opened his eyes and was asked if he was all right. In the grim silence, the narrator reflected that survival had been uncertain, admitting that without a stroke of fortune, death would have already claimed them. As dusk settled over the forest, the young man, burdened by the secret of the Rune of Usura, questioned uncertainly whether he truly belonged in this place. In the shadowy close-up, the man's face tightens with shock as he reacts to something alarming, his tension palpable in the silence. Furious and unable to contain her anger any longer, the girl shouted for him to be quiet as she delivered a powerful punch that sent the man flying backward in utter shock. Standing defiantly over the wary man in the dusky forest, the bold girl confronted him with unwavering resolve, insisting that if fear had held them back, they never would have come to his rescue. In the darkness illuminated only by glowing embers, the memory of first meeting Ban 7 years ago begins to surface. Although worry lingered beneath the surface, it was only when true danger threatened the village that their fears became reality. A group of battered survivors huddled together, their faces etched with terror and exhaustion as they stared ahead at the unknown threat, the protective leader instinctively stepping forward to shield the others, while fear and uncertainty rippled through the ranks behind him. Cradling her protectively despite his grievous wounds, the girl tearfully acknowledged the man's selfless act, expressing her gratitude for how he shielded them all at great personal cost. In the golden-lit woods, the girl leaned in with determination and announced that they had decided together not to let anything trouble them any longer, while the man listened calmly to her resolute declaration. With a confident smile, the girl gazed at the glowing landscape and pledged that no matter what troubles might arise, they would face them together, just as they had before. A group of young men, eager to tease, led the others in loudly assuring Ban that they would always protect him, while mocking him for being too soft and questioning if he could truly handle, as the rest of the crowd laughed and joined in the playful jeering. With a warm, supportive tone, the reassuring leader encouraged the group to proceed, urging the 2 participants to finish the ceremony as their companions stood by with hopeful and caring expressions. Ban confessed his love to with open sincerity, and gazing warmly back at him, responded that she loved him too, their mutual affection filling the moment with tenderness. With an ominous air, the man uttered a sardonic comment, his annoyance barely concealed behind a shadowed smirk. With a sinister grin, the monstrous entity made its menacing presence known, declaring in a chilling tone that it was so overwhelmed by the moment that it was tearing up. Suddenly, a mysterious glowing light radiates from deep within the shadowy forest, casting an eerie glow across the distant mountains beneath the star-studded sky. Suddenly, a massive green explosion erupts in the forest, illuminating the night sky with an intense and explosive energy. In the eerie light cast by the ominous green pool, a desperate figure reached upward, their voice trembling as they weakly pleaded for help. Amidst the blood-soaked battlefield, a fatally wounded survivor struggled to stay conscious, his hopeless, ragged breaths echoing through the silence as he raised trembling hands toward the sky. Against a blood-red backdrop, the man's manic stare and haunted expression reveal the depths of his unraveling mind. Amidst the gruesome aftermath, the wounded victims writhed in agony on the blood-stained ground, their desperate cries revealing the unbearable pain and terror that consumed them. Suddenly, a catastrophic surge of dark energy erupts across the battlefield, leaving devastation in its wake as bodies and debris are violently scattered. Suddenly, the horrified man cried out in fear as he fell backward in the forest, desperately reacting to the unseen threat before him. A man, utterly shocked and terrified, cried out in horror as he struggled to comprehend the terrifying sight before him. Amidst the dark, ominous sky, an unseen presence despaired in confusion at the inexplicable turn of events. Amidst the horrific aftermath, the lone man sat in stunned silence, surrounded by the bloody bodies of those who had perished, his shock and trauma palpable in the midst of overwhelming devastation. Stumbling upon the bloodied bodies of her uncle and aunt, the distraught girl called out their names in disbelief, unable to accept the horrific reality before her. A man, overwhelmed by despair, cried out in disbelief as he reacted to the shocking revelation. Suddenly, the man, overwhelmed with panic, reacted in horror as he realized something terrifying was unfolding before him. Suddenly, the sinister man ambushed his horrified victim, revealing himself from the shadows with a malicious grin and announcing his presence in a way that left the terrified man frozen in fear. In the deep shadows, a sinister man with a malicious grin loomed menacingly, his presence radiating an ominous threat. With brutal force, the man was repeatedly slammed into the cliff, his agonized cries echoing as he endured the relentless assault. As supernatural energy swirled around him, The battered man collapsed to his knees, gasping desperately as he struggled for breath. As the menacing figure seized the injured girl by the hair, he threatened her in a chilling tone that she had better hide, warning that the rune of Asura might soon be discovered. With a menacing grin, the sinister man announced to his hidden prey that he was about to begin the hunt, while the terrified girl cowered helplessly on the ground before him. Confronted by a shadowy figure crouched in darkness, the terrified onlooker stammered out a question, desperately asking who the mysterious presence was. In the tense clearing, the hooded intruder confronted the crouched man with a determined glare, stating that his reasons were none of the others' concern, and that he had business to settle, while the frightened girl remained restrained nearby. A sinister, hooded man, shrouded in green energy, revealed with a threatening intensity that someone sought the true ruin hidden within the rune of Asura. Amid the devastation, the perpetrator boasted with chilling pride that he had wiped out all the neighboring villages to eliminate any survivors, considering his actions thorough and complete. In the ominous silence, the brooding man seethed with barely contained fury, his shadowed glare and the blood-red streaks behind him revealing the storm of vengeance raging within. As a masked man dragged the terrified girl toward the desperate, crouched figure shrouded in dark energy, he coldly explained that he was only following orders and bore no personal grudge. With a defiant glint in his eyes, the man unleashed swirling, shadowy green energy around himself and warned the others not to harbor too much hatred toward him. A sinister, hooded man, radiating malicious intent, explained to his captive that this subspace prison was crafted especially for them, where even the passage of thousands of years would become meaningless. A menacing, partially restrained creature, its sharp teeth bared and a spiked, glowing shackle holding it back, threatened maliciously that it would be released when the time was right, warning its captors to behave until then. In the midst of the ominous confrontation, the menacing figure taunted his desperate opponent by remarking that no one could predict when that moment would come. A menacing man seized the defeated girl by her hair, his oppressive presence overwhelming her as she hung helplessly in his grasp. Blood dripped from the wounded man's mouth as he struggled to remain conscious, his face contorted in agony and the weight of desperation pressing down with every breath. Suddenly, a terrified hand bursts from a swirling supernatural vortex, its owner desperately reaching for help as a single fearful eye stares out from the darkness. A single, tear-filled eye trembled with raw anguish as the character cried out in desperate agony, overwhelmed by a sudden surge of emotion. In the darkened, mystical environment, a glowing sphere unleashes an ominous surge of green energy, casting an eerie light across the scene. Standing alone atop the shattered platform, the man, awed by the swirling red chaos around him, questioned in hushed disbelief whether he was truly witnessing the ultimate force of destruction. Collapsing in defeat on the cracked, red-tinged ground, the man was overwhelmed by despair as he questioned whether his fate had been sealed from the very beginning, and struggled to accept that everything might have been caused by a single rune. A man, haunted by inner turmoil and shrouded in red-tinged shadows, begins to confess with a tone of deep regret, as despair settles over him. Haunted by remorse, the man reflected grimly on how his actions had brought only destruction and death. From above, the grim sight reveals the long-haired man lying defeated and motionless on the blood-stained ground, his silence a testament to his utter loss. Haunted by anxiety, the battered man questioned whether his uncle, aunt, and might still be alive as he gazed back into the ominous darkness. In the midst of a black void shifting into a somber red sky, the narrator reflects regretfully, wondering if just once things could have turned out differently and mourning the lost dream of living an ordinary life. Collapsing to the ground beneath the ominous blood-red sky, the terrified girl gasped for breath, her wide eyes betraying utter horror as she struggled to comprehend the terror surrounding her. Amidst the eerie green haze, unseen forces seemed to manifest as glowing hands rose upward, embodying the realization that foolish hopes and unchecked greed had summoned something ominous. Suddenly, as the girl was overrun by ghostly hands swirling with eerie green energy, it became clear through the ominous atmosphere that a malevolent force had killed everyone. Suddenly, the terrified young man is overwhelmed by countless shadowy hands reaching out from the darkness, his panic intensifying as he struggles helplessly against their spectral grip. Bathed in the crimson glow of the setting sun, the man lies defeated and motionless in a spreading pool of blood, his despair lingering in the desolate silence. A terrified man lay sprawled on the blood-red ground, his mind reeling with despair as he desperately wondered aloud if a higher power truly existed. In the midst of the swirling red void, the girl, overwhelmed by despair, confessed to herself that she no longer saw a point in believing and admitted how utterly exhausted she felt. Lying wounded on the blood-soaked ground beneath the ominous red sky, the defeated man pleaded desperately for mercy, his voice trembling with despair. Collapsed on the ground, the battered man pleaded in utter hopelessness to be allowed to die, his despair overwhelming every trace of resistance. Despite blood trickling from their mouth, the wounded individual tried to reassure those around them, insisting in a resigned tone that none of this was their fault. With tears streaming down her face, the devastated girl confessed to Ban that she would love him forever. Suddenly, the terrified girl lay sprawled on the ground, her wide eyes fixed in horror as a menacing shadow towered over her trembling form. Despairing and overpowered, the wounded figure struggled to push themselves up from the ground, internally refusing to accept defeat. In a hellish red void, the man, racked with guilt and horror, screamed in despair as he blamed himself for what had happened to. Shrouded in crimson smoke and shadow, the monstrous man unleashed a wave of menacing dark power that seemed to distort the very air around him. In the oppressive darkness, the defiant man gripped the glowing red mechanical eye and challenged the notion of resting or accepting an end, demanding to know who had declared such a conclusion. In a nightmarish red haze, the man is overwhelmed by torment as ghostly hands reach for him, his horrified screams echoing through the horrific scene. Amid the blood-red nightmare, the spectral girl cried out in a sinister tone that the tormented man still had something left to do, while he struggled desperately against the ghostly hands restraining him. Succumbing to despair, the man clutched his face in agony and muttered in a broken voice that he agreed, his emotion raw against the dark, blood-red backdrop. In a terrifying display, the man, now transformed into a snarling, monstrous figure, lunges forward in a frenzied attack, his glowing red eyes and the swirl of crimson energy heightening the chaos. According to the narrator, the Rune of Usura inevitably leads to devastation, as the panel reveals a catastrophic aftermath where bloodied, lifeless bodies are strewn across the scene. Suddenly, the man is seized by a tormenting transformation, his scream echoing as blood streams from his eyes, and his face contorts in desperate agony. A sinister, hooded figure taunted the unseen audience with a menacing grin, boasting that someone out there desperately needed the powerful Rune he possessed. Consumed by fury, the man unleashed a violent burst of red energy, declaring with a vengeful roar that he would make his enemies suffer. Suddenly, the transformed man unleashed a deafening, primal scream, his monstrous face contorted in fury and agony as blood streamed from his eyes. In the blood-spattered gloom, a group of eerily smiling figures confronts the viewer, each face twisted into a disturbing expression, their menacing presence amplifying the ominous tension hanging in the air. As the lone girl was overtaken by a deathly energy, she succumbed to despair, her form consumed by the swirling red aura. Amidst the nightmarish landscape, the furious monstrous entity confronted the terrified group, accusing them that everything was their fault and demanding to know where they thought they were going. Fueled by uncontrollable fury, the grotesque, wrathful monster led the swarm in a violent assault, screaming that everything was the victim's fault and demanding their death, as the horde of twisted creatures charged forward through the bloody chaos. Radiating raw power beneath a blazing sky, the vengeful man declared with unwavering resolve that, no matter how many years it took, he would have his revenge, while those around him cowered and recoiled in terror at his ominous oath. Suddenly, a monstrous entity with furious, wide eyes and a gaping mouth bursts forth from the darkness, its terrifying presence engulfed in a violent red glow. For 2 centuries, a desperate man has fought alone against a relentless tide of monstrous, skeletal attackers, his determination undiminished despite the overwhelming odds. In a frenzy of violence, the overpowering man unleashed a devastating blow, sending blood spraying as terrified victims were struck down amidst the ensuing chaos. For 4 centuries, a furious central figure unleashed destructive power amid a violent, chaotic battle, overwhelming terrified opponents as desperate shadowy figures fled or defended themselves against the blood-soaked carnage. For 6 centuries, a grotesque, tormented entity composed of writhing bodies has loomed ominously against the blood-red sky, revealing its horrifying presence. Amidst the chaos and ruin, the boy advanced with unwavering resolve, embodying the relentless path of Asura as he moved through the devastation. Against the blood-red sky, the grotesque creature unleashed a furious scream, its many eyes blazing with terror and rage. Suddenly, a foreboding mural of a horned, fanged monster emerges from the shadows on the ancient wall, casting an eerie presence over the scene. Drenched in blood, the shadowy figure fell deeper into the swamp of despair, swallowed by darkness and suffering. As centuries slipped away beneath the ominous sky, 999 years passed while the tormented man endured endless agony under the looming black hole. In a cataclysmic moment, the monstrous being is engulfed by a colossal burst of energy, its desperate form barely visible within the blinding attack. Drenched in blood and surrounded by despair, a monstrous, menacing figure rises from the smoky crimson swamp, its glowing red eyes piercing the darkness. Endless agony consumed him as a monstrous, shadowy figure with blazing red eyes surged violently from the explosion of light, its tormented form overtaken by unbearable pain. The fire of revenge burning in his heart erupts as the enraged man towers over the terrified girl, unleashing a furious outburst that overwhelms her in the fiery red haze. Suddenly, a cataclysmic explosion ripped through the devastated landscape beneath the ominous sky, as the air trembled with the force of destruction. Against the backdrop of a blood-red sky, the monstrous figure revealed its menacing form, its gaping mouth and bloody, clenched fist exuding an ominous presence. Amid the shattered earth and swirling chaos, the lone figure, bloodied yet unyielding, endured the aftermath of the attack with a defiance that refused to be extinguished. In the shadows, the badly injured man lay bleeding, his face twisted in despair as he struggled to remain conscious. Amidst the sweeping panorama of mountains and forest beneath a radiant sky, someone wondered inwardly about the meaning of their dream, their thoughts tinged with quiet reflection. As they sat together on the grassy hillside overlooking the mountains, the girl earnestly shared her hopes about marrying him and wondered aloud if that would make her parents his parents-in-law, while he listened thoughtfully to her heartfelt reflections. Standing side by side beneath the hopeful glow of the mountains, the man optimistically shared his vision of their future together, suggesting that they should one day have both a son and a daughter, while the girl listened contentedly. The older girl offered heartfelt encouragement to the younger one, assuring her with warmth that she would always be welcome to return home with a happy smile. In a sunlit meadow framed by distant mountains, the young woman turned back with a serene smile, envisioning a hopeful future where she dreamed of building a family and creating their own haven. With hope shining in her eyes, the determined girl looked up at the sky and declared that pursuing that dream was her true aspiration. In the swirling shadows, the brooding man channeled a menacing presence, his intense gaze radiating malicious intent. In the oppressive darkness, the man revealed his terrifying true form, his bloodthirsty intent evident in the monstrous, red-fanged maw that now dominated the scene. From the depths of darkness, a monstrous face with glowing red eyes bursts forth, its ravenous presence unleashed in a display of pure terror. Amidst the ominous red glow, a helpless figure is swallowed by swirling dark tendrils, their despair deepening as the darkness closes in. From the churning mass of darkness, tormented souls, faces twisted in agony, fear, and despair, emerge, their silent screams echoing the nightmarish depths of their suffering. Amid the nightmarish chaos, a surge of anguished, screaming faces is unleashed upward, drawn helplessly toward the explosive core of darkness as tendrils of power writhe and consume everything in their path. A massive fiery explosion erupts, sending a towering mushroom cloud into the sky and filling the scene with catastrophic intensity. Awed by the overwhelming force coursing through him, the man wondered if he was now witnessing the true power of Rune as he unleashed a surge of destructive energy. If this power had awakened that day, the man would have surged forward, fiercely unleashing a torrent of dark energy that now swirled ominously around him. With fierce intensity, the armored man's boot crashed down, shattering the ground and sending red energy swirling through the air. Suddenly, a monstrous, multi-eyed creature unleashed its menacing presence amid a storm of black tendrils and intense red light, filling the air with an ominous sense that no one would have died if not for its arrival. Suddenly, a silhouetted man shrouded in darkness unleashes a surge of ominous energy, his fierce stance radiating menace as red and black power swirls around him. The sinister man, his red eyes glowing with menace, confronted the terrified creature and demanded confirmation, his intimidating presence leaving the creature recoiling in fear. Amidst a blood-red haze, the transformed man erupts with frenzied, uncontrollable power, his monstrous form radiating chaos across the battlefield. A massive, frenzied beast unleashes a devastating energy wave, engulfing the helpless man caught in its overwhelming force. Amid the cracked, fiery red backdrop, the man unleashed a furious surge of shadowy energy, his presence radiating an ominous and overwhelming power. Amidst the chaos and swirling darkness, the girl was violently flung through the inferno, her defeated expression barely visible as she was overpowered by the menacing force. Suddenly, a monstrous entity erupts violently from a blinding vertical explosion, its frenzied roar echoing through the chaotic debris. Suddenly, a monstrous, shadowy figure with a menacing grin bursts forth, unleashing a frenzied wave of power that distorts the very air around him. A massive beam of energy crashed into the ground, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion that sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Bathed in gentle sunlight, the tranquil mountain landscape unfolds with lush trees and a clear, flowing river, evoking a serene sense of peace. In a menacing forest clearing, a terrified, injured man desperately begged for mercy, insisting he had no money, while his aggressive assailant mocked his pleas, and a menacing girl watched on with amusement, her weapon ready. A shirtless man stood menacingly behind his opponent, and with a sinister glint in his eye, threatened that he would be generous by only taking a few of the man's organs before smugly preparing to ask another question. A bewildered man knelt on the ground and asked what year it was, while the skeptical observer nearby wondered to himself what the boy could possibly be talking about. With a mocking grin, the man leaned down and, amused by the protagonist's confusion, revealed that it was the year 1500, causing the anxious figure at his feet to listen in tense disbelief. In the year 1500, two men stood in a foreboding forest, one lost in serious contemplation of the past, while the other watched tensely from the shadows. A close-up reveals the stern, mustached man delivering a menacing glare, his intense gaze radiating an unmistakable threat. Amidst the explosion of force, the heavily man remained composed as he reflected that only 5 years had passed in this world, unfazed by the fierce assault launched at him. A furious man, caught off guard and baring his teeth, shouted in shock as he demanded to know what was happening. Startled in the forest, the dominant man reacted with surprise and demanded to know what had just been said, while his cautious companion remained tense beside him. Amid the ominous atmosphere, the girl locked her intense red gaze on her target, her menacing presence radiating silent intent. As the two men collided in a surge of energy and blood, each delivered a devastating blow with their glowing weapons, their fierce aggression and desperate resolve clashing in a moment of intense violence. Against a backdrop saturated with red and shadow, the man's furious determination intensifies as he channels his rage and steels himself for what comes next. As chaos and a red haze fill the air, a monstrous figure stomps down with ruthless force toward the terrified, cowering man, intensifying the sense of impending doom. A single hand crashed down violently amidst an explosion of debris, the force of the impact echoing with pain and signaling a moment of overwhelming defeat. With a burst of ferocious strength, the furious man unleashed a devastating, fiery punch that sent his shocked opponent hurtling through the air. In the grim aftermath of the massacre, 4 bloodied bodies, 2 men and 2 girls, lie motionless in the field, their lifeless forms a stark testament to the violence that unfolded. Suddenly, the man let out a terrified scream as he clutched his broken weapon, panic flooding his face. In the tense forest clearing, the menacing man called out in a commanding tone, prompting the terrified girl to stammer a panicked response as she cowered before him. A sinister-looking man with red eyes and visible scars, exuding a menacing confidence, initiated a tense conversation by asking if he could pose a question, his ominous intent hanging heavily in the air. Since ancient times, this land has been shaped by the power of rune arts, as a detailed map of the mystical continent is revealed to introduce its rich, storied world. Unveiling an intricate world map, the panel immerses the reader in an epic and mysterious setting, hinting at vast continents, towering mountains, and uncharted regions waiting to be explored. Countless kingdoms have risen here throughout history, casting a somber shadow over the present moment. Among the many areas depicted, the map ominously highlights a significant red region, branching out like a warning of what lies within. A dark, mystical fortress crowned by swirling magical rings looms over the misty, ominous landscape, revealing the formidable kingdom. With overwhelming military might, it has ruled as the dominant power of the continent for ages. Examining the robe against the illustrated drawing, the girl, her curiosity piqued, carefully presented the evidence and asked if it was true that these distinctive clothes belonged only to sorcerers of royal household, confirming whether he had witnessed it himself. With a wild gleam in his eyes, the unhinged man insisted to his unseen interrogator that he was telling the absolute truth and would never dare to fabricate something so serious. The man hanging upside down from the tree quickly acknowledged the man's command with eager obedience, making it clear he would follow the order without hesitation. About 5 years ago, a mercenary named who had personal dealings with Lord, the master of the bandit den, mentioned that a high-profile client had arrived and arranged a secretive meeting. In the dimly lit room, the manipulative man leaned back with a scheming grin as he tempted his listener by promising a generous reward and pressed for their agreement to his suspicious proposal. In a dimly lit, wood-paneled room, a strategic man lounged back and contemplated the high-profile proposal he had received, reasoning that although it came from a sorcerer of kingdom, they had no grounds to refuse and thus accepted without hesitation. As the medieval village was consumed by massive flames, the bandits boasted with chaotic pride that their raid had been effortless and left no trace behind. As a massive heap of bloodied, lifeless corpses dominates the scene, someone remarks grimly that the bodies were so numerous and in such horrific condition that burning them all proved to be a troublesome task. Under duress and visibly anxious, the bruised man confessed that after the job was completed, the purple-haired sorcerer had simply paid him without hesitation and then left. In the grim forest, the man questioned the girl about the bodies, and she replied with urgency that among the corpses, there had indeed been a single girl with short orange hair who was especially noticeable. From the shadows, the ominous figure confronted his target with a suspicious tone, accusing them of having burned the body as well. With a smug expression, the arrogant man mocked the victim by callously remarking that it was a shame she had such a pretty face. With a contemptuous sneer, the battered man mocked his defeated foe by remarking that he would have fetched a fortune as a slave. In the ominous glow, a brooding man, a confident girl at the center, and a mysterious companion gathered together, each radiating silent determination as they prepared to confront what awaited them. In a violent blur of motion, one man's clenched fist connects brutally with his opponent's bloodied face, leaving the overpowered victim reeling in shock while the attacker remains fierce and unyielding. Set against a backdrop of rugged mountains, a sprawling wooden compound emerges, its imposing structure signaling the secretive stronghold of the bandits. With a menacing glare, the aggressive man cracked his whip and threatened the terrified captives that if they did not start moving immediately, he would break their ankles, forcing them to scramble forward in fear. Leering over the wooden cage, the cruel overseer mocked the new captives by remarking with smug satisfaction that their resistance made them more valuable, while his indifferent companion looked on, deepening the fear and despair among the powerless girls huddled inside. Suddenly, both men stiffened in surprise as an unexpected sound broke the tense silence between them. An anxious man, holding booze and eager to get inside, called out for the door to be opened while another, silent and wary, cautiously obliged from within. A bearded man, his tone serious and authoritative, interrogated the fearful captive by demanding to know how long she had been held behind the wooden bars. Just as the man began to boast that he had secured something valuable, he was violently struck in the chest by a fierce attacker, his shock evident as the blow sent him hurtling backward. With fury blazing in his eyes, the man unleashed a devastating blow upon the monstrous, shadowy enemy, his overwhelming power shaking the battlefield as the creature reeled beneath the onslaught. As the two men clashed with explosive force, their weapons sparked through the air, each combatant driven by fierce determination and unyielding resolve. In a fit of rage, the large, muscular man demanded to know who had sent his adversary, his voice booming with fury as he confronted them. With a roar of exertion, the fierce man unleashed a devastating attack, his aggression evident as his weapon crashed into the ground with overwhelming force. With fierce determination etched across his face, the man with stitched arms launched himself downward, crashing toward the ground in a powerful display of force. At that moment, the dominant and ruthless attacker unleashed a fierce, devastating punch at close range, leaving his overpowered opponent reeling in shock as blood spattered from the brutal impact. With a furious glare and his fist clenched, the man commanded everyone to be silent, his dark, ominous energy making his dominance unmistakable. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts, unleashing chaotic energy and filling the scene with swirling debris. Suddenly, several men glanced upward in alarm, one exclaiming in confusion and another voicing his disbelief, as the entire group reacted tensely to an unexpected interruption from above. A bold, tattooed man strode into view dragging an unconscious body behind him, confidently taunting the startled gang by pointing out the crowd they had gathered and mocking their attempt at playing bandit. Towering over their cowering target, the dominant man demanded assertively to speak with the boss while his menacing companion stood guard, brandishing a massive weapon to amplify the threat. An intimidating man with glowing red eyes confronted his target against a fiery red backdrop, demanding in a threatening tone to have his questions answered. A group of armed men, their faces twisted with menace, taunted the unseen challenger by mocking his lack of fear and questioning whether he understood the danger of his surroundings. A muscular man in a fur-trimmed cloak issued a stern warning for everyone to stand back, his serious tone causing a nervous reaction among those nearby. In a charged standoff, one assertive man stepped forward to take command, declaring that he and his group would handle the situation, while another, frustrated, warned the others to back off if they valued their lives. In a sudden burst of tension, the dominant sorcerer warned the others to step back after recognizing that his opponent, much like himself, was born with the power of rune arts, leaving the group on edge. A menacing man with a star mark on his forehead extended his hand toward the young sorcerer, and in a threatening tone, demanded to know what business the young sorcerer had with him. With a grim expression, the heavily man solemnly recalled that 5 years earlier, a sorcerer from Kingdom had commissioned work from him through a mercenary named. A muscular, smug man stood in the outdoor stockade, taunting his unseen opponents as he pointed out that they had uncovered information from his men and demanded to know what they planned to do about it. With a hostile glare and a commanding gesture, the menacing man threatened the group by demanding they reveal the whereabouts of, declaring that their lives would be spared only if they. With a smug expression, the sinister man prepared to divulge critical information, confidently assuring the others that he would reveal the secret they sought. Suddenly, a surge of energy erupts as a lightning-charged strike tears through the scene, heightening the intensity. In a surge of blinding energy, the enraged man unleashed a devastating lightning attack, furiously declaring that his wrath would be delivered upon his opponent's corpse. Suddenly, a giant lightning-infused sword crashes down, unleashing a devastating surge of energy that overwhelms the man caught in its path. As blue lightning crackled around him, the fierce, spiky-haired man charged forward and menacingly confronted his opponent, taunting that if they wished to plead for mercy, they should first conceal their lethal mana. A transformed, furious man radiated menace as he threatened his unseen adversary, declaring with grim certainty that it would be their life ending here today. A spiked, rune-inscribed plaque ominously introduces the Rune of Blades, revealing that it arms the entire body with sharpened blades. Amid shattered rocks and debris, the man, lying injured yet resolute, acknowledged with frustration that further negotiation was futile. A menacing figure with a powerful presence confronted someone with a threatening question, his intense aura and glowing red eyes making the moment feel dangerously intimidating. Suddenly, the transformed man charges forward with crackling lightning energy, his fierce determination radiating through the intense atmosphere. Suddenly, as a surge of lightning energy crashes down from above, the wounded figure below reacts in utter shock to the overwhelming force descending upon him. Suddenly, an overwhelming surge of energy bursts forth at the center of the scene, sending shockwaves rippling through the surroundings with explosive intensity. Enraged and transformed, the berserk man unleashed a furious roar, his scream echoing with unrestrained violence as black energy erupted from his mouth. In a surge of explosive energy, the defiant challenger unleashed a powerful, glowing attack on the overwhelmed boss, taunting him by questioning if this was truly all he had to offer. Overcome with fury, the man gritted his teeth and shouted in outrage, demanding to know who stood before him. As a surge of blue lightning hurled him backward, the furious man shouted in outrage at his attacker, unable to contain his anger as he was overpowered by the devastating energy. With fury blazing in his eyes, the aggressive man launched a lightning-charged attack and shouted his murderous intent, while his opponent braced himself with unwavering determination. Furiously, the enraged man hurled a lightning-charged attack at his target, shouting in outrage and making it clear that he saw them as nothing more than a contemptible adversary. With a challenging glare, the man initiated a fierce attack, taunting his opponent by demanding whether they could dodge the devastating blue energy surging toward them. As the brutalized man is struck by a powerful blow, blood sprays through the air, his pain evident in the intense chaos of the moment. With unwavering resolve, the man unleashed the full force of his magic, declaring that youth would not spare his adversary from facing the wrath of a true sorcerer. With malicious intent, the man unleashed a devastating surge of energy upon the girl, taunting that he wanted to see how she would endure agony as her body was torn apart. As the menacing man strode forward, unleashing an overwhelming surge of power, it became clear that no one would be able to move a single step under his dominant presence. With a surge of aggression, the man charged forward, his stitched foot striking the ground amid a tense, crimson blur. Despite the devastating blows he had received, the terrifying adversary advanced with a menacing persistence, leaving his stunned opponent to question in disbelief how he could still be moving. Amid swirling, chaotic energy, the fierce antagonist aggressively taunted his opponent with contempt, questioning whether the youth truly felt no pain and mocking the idea with scorn. As a furious man, overflowing with rage and power, charged downward in a devastating assault surrounded by shards of red energy, the overwhelming intensity of pain became palpable in the air. Striding forward through the fiery haze, the ferocious man unleashed his dark power and ruthlessly declared that the sensation he felt could not even be considered pain. With a thunderous laugh, the dominant man, clearly thrilled by his opponent's spirit, announced that the youth had fire and, without hesitation, unleashed a massive, lightning-charged attack against his strained adversary. In a surge of raw intensity, the powerful man unleashes a devastating burst of blue energy from his hand, his fierce determination crackling in the air. In a surge of fierce determination, the man unleashes a colossal, lightning-charged energy attack skyward, filling the air with intense power. With fierce determination, the muscular man defiantly challenged his opponent as he unleashed a devastating lightning attack, his triumphant expression revealing his confidence in victory. A dark, monstrous presence advanced menacingly, its tendrils unfurling as the ominous threat of having one's skin flayed alive lingered in the air. Amidst the swirling dark energy and ominous red backdrop, the menacing figure taunted his opponent with contempt, declaring that their efforts were pathetic. With a contemptuous glare, the dominant man taunted his opponent by claiming that their suffering was insignificant, as a clenched fist surrounded by menacing red and black energy filled the scene. Lost in a nightmarish realm, a lone figure struggled in agony, feeling utterly trapped within the endless swamp of suffering. unveiling a nightmarish horror. A mass of distorted, agonized faces with glowing eyes swarmed menacingly, their presence filling the panel with an overwhelming sense of dread. In a frenzy of desperation, the monstrous man unleashed a devastating strike, screaming inwardly that his power must be greater than this. A monstrous beast, radiating fury, unleashes a devastating lightning-charged attack that hurls the helpless man through the chaos of flying debris. Suddenly, the fierce man's body surged with energy as he unleashed his transformation, his furious presence intensifying the atmosphere. With unrestrained fury, the overwhelmingly strong man crashed down onto the ground, unleashing a devastating shockwave that sent debris exploding in every direction. Suddenly, a blinding energy beam tears through the forest, detonating with a thunderous explosion that sends shockwaves rippling across the landscape. In a burst of intensity, a gigantic, glowing sword cleaves through the dark forest, scattering debris and illuminating the night sky with its overwhelming power. With an ominous silence, the man, his pale, stitched legs leading the way, stepped forward menacingly, his very presence radiating an unsettling menace. As the girl stood overlooking the vast valley, she let out a relieved sigh while watching the mysterious light glow in the sky, awe and exhaustion mingling in her expression. Facing the sprawling mountains with unwavering resolve, the heavily man addressed his unseen opponent, signaling that a decisive moment was about to unfold. With a menacing confidence, the heavily man, his back radiating an intense red aura, challenged his opponent by asking if they should continue, provoking the next round of confrontation. Suddenly, one of the anxious men let out a startled hiccup as he gripped his weapon tightly, heightening the tense atmosphere beneath the ominous red sky. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight gently illuminated the mist-shrouded mountain peaks and dense forests, filling the landscape with a tranquil serenity. A chilling silence settled over the blood-soaked ground, where the aftermath of the massacre was marked by the lifeless bodies of men and girls strewn amidst discarded knives. Suddenly, the man doubled over in agony, violently coughing up blood as pain contorted his face. In a tense forest clearing, the assertive interrogator pressed for answers about whereabouts, prompting the anxious informant to nervously confirm that was indeed in the kingdom. Amidst the grim aftermath of a brutal battle, an unseen survivor acknowledged the situation with weary acceptance as the blood-soaked field lay silent beneath the weight of loss. A bloodied, terrified man begged for mercy, asking if the other would truly let him live as promised, while the menacing figure coldly questioned whether such a promise had ever been made, causing the man's desperation to intensify. As the sun dipped low, the heavily man taunted his wounded opponent with feigned laughter, insisting in an amused yet menacing tone that he was only joking and seeking anxious reassurance from the bloodied man before him. Suddenly, as the man was caught off guard and fatally wounded by a brutal blow, he managed to announce that he would be leaving. Standing confidently over the fallen giant, the bloodied man mercilessly revealed that his earlier promise of mercy had been nothing more than a cruel joke. A bloodied, sinister man with glowing red eyes confronted his opponent with a chilling expression, demanding in a hostile tone to know what was so amusing. The man, lingering cautiously in the shadows, weighed his next move as he admitted to himself that, although he was tempted to storm directly into kingdom, he couldn't act based solely on a bandit's word. Standing alone in the shadowy, moonlit forest, the man resolutely vowed to himself that, no matter how long it took, he would personally hunt down. Under the ominous night sky, the sinister-looking man with red eyes gazed upward, and his voice resolute vowed to his absent loved ones, his uncle and his aunt, that they only needed to wait a little longer. Meanwhile, a dark, monstrous arm extends ominously, as an unseen figure offers it as a small, unsettling gift and admits a lack of artistry in its presentation. In the midst of the macabre scene, the domineering man imperiously presented the grotesque pillar of writhing, impaled bodies, and insisted that, regardless of whether his audience was impressed, they should accept his horrifying creation for now. Beneath the eerie glow of the full moon, the lone man advanced with unwavering determination, torch in hand, to confront the nightmarish effigy looming before him. As the solitary man stood menacingly in the darkness, he declared with unwavering determination that his quest for revenge was only just beginning. With determination blazing in his eyes, the man charged into battle, his fierce resolve evident as he pushed forward through the fiery glow. With a chilling determination, the cold and calculating man announced that their first destination would be the kingdom, his menace underscored by the ominous glint in his eyes. A panoramic view reveals the majestic medieval architecture and winding waterways of Kingdom, introducing the grandeur of the kingdom's setting. Arriving at Guild Street, the scene unfolds with crowds bustling past as a purposeful man leads a strange, horned animal through the heart of the busy medieval city. In a sudden explosion of violence, one man delivered a fierce, devastating punch to his opponent's face, leaving the other reeling in shock as blood splattered dramatically across the scene. As blood pooled beneath him, the injured man screamed in agony, while his cold and dominant assailant loomed overhead, having just inflicted a critical wound. In the darkness of his cell, the wounded prisoner looked up with desperate realization, revealing that Anna possessed knowledge that terrified him. Standing amidst the grim aftermath, the man looked down at his defeated adversaries and regretfully remarked that they should have attempted to talk from the very beginning. As the dark-haired man strode unfazed through the narrow alley strewn with battered bodies, one of the defeated men managed to groan in pain and thank him for the information, his voice barely audible amid the aftermath. A focused man, his determination unwavering, resolved that they must uncover her location from the next contact, insisting there was no time to waste in such an urgent situation. One day earlier, a towering pillar of swirling red and black energy erupted violently upward, casting an ominous shadow over the scene. Amid the chaos, mana erupts uncontrollably around the shadowy figure, their desperation intensifying as the wild energy surges beyond restraint. Invisible to the naked eye, particles of unknown origin spread through the universe as a vast cosmic scene with swirling galaxies and countless stars unfolds, shrouding everything in an air of mystery. The elemental rune users are introduced, each figure radiating a distinct and powerful aura of water, ice, or fire, as the mysterious abilities of rune arts begin to manifest. Those who channel mana are known as sorcerers, and their bodies serve as vessels that gather and contain this mystical energy. As dark energy cracked ominously through the man's agonized body, someone urgently warned that if nothing was done, the unstable mana would cause his body to explode, insisting they needed to seal the mana immediately to stop the impending rampage. A gloved hand, crackling with fierce red energy, unleashed a devastating surge of power that filled the air with explosive intensity. Suddenly, a supernatural eruption engulfs the misty forest, sending ominous waves of shadowy bat-like creatures swarming into the blood-red sky. Gasping for breath, the wounded man struggled to rise from the cracked earth, his desperation palpable as a dark, red aura pulsed around him in the eerie forest. Catching his breath with relief after surviving a near-fatal encounter, the man acknowledged to himself just how close he had come to disaster. Standing alone on the stone steps outside the house, the man anxiously reflected that with most of his mana sealed, he could only use a tiny amount, and worried about the consequences if he were to use it recklessly again. The young man, his hands wrapped and expression serious, reflected on the grave risk that using sealed mana posed, and resolved that he must first uncover the cause of its rampage if he hoped to wield it safely. Facing the imposing figure in the shadows, the smaller man, focused and contemplative, admitted to himself that for now he could only depend on limited resources despite the inconvenience. On a bustling cobblestone street, the large, intimidating man confronted the smaller figure blocking his way, and demanded in an annoyed tone that he move aside so he could get through. An intimidating enforcer, his expression cloaked in shadows, warned any intruders in a threatening tone that Anna currently controlled this place and demanded they turn back. Looking up from the shadowy path with defiant confidence, the man responded with sarcasm that his opponent should have mentioned it earlier. Amidst the ominous red glow, the shocked boy realized that someone had acknowledged his success in finding the hidden power, even as he struggled to comprehend the overwhelming force awakening within him. With furious determination, the man unleashed a devastating punch downward, the explosive force radiating intense energy throughout the scene. As the man is struck powerfully in the chest, His agonized gasp escapes while blood and energy explode outward from the fatal blow. Suddenly, the man screamed in agony as blood spurted from his neck, violently struck and left helpless in the brutal assault. In a tense moment, the calm man apologized with indifference, asking to be allowed some rest, while his wounded foe groaned in agony on the ground nearby. As the group entered the misty, ornate bathhouse, one of the girls suddenly reacted with startled surprise, her nerves heightened by the tense, mysterious atmosphere surrounding them. In the foggy, ornate chamber, the authoritative man, clearly irritated, demanded to know the identity of the unexpected visitor, reminded everyone that he had forbidden guests for the day, and sharply questioned Jenny about why she had not already left, while the girls stood startled and the loyal guards watched alertly. A serious young man with bandaged arms, exuding a focused determination, adjusted his gloves as he asked those present if anyone knew the mercenary named, explaining he had heard someone here might have information. From the swirling fog, a powerful, intimidating man emerged, and his anger palpable, threatened the listener with a deadly warning for daring to speak the name so casually, making it clear that careless words could lead to a silent demise. In the mist-shrouded bathhouse, one man demanded to know everything the other had learned about a certain individual, prompting his companion to respond with amused disbelief that the person in question was nothing short of a lunatic. With a menacing air, the authoritative woman lounging in the steaming pool commanded her followers to tear apart their enemy's mouth and bring him before her, her cruelty underscoring the sinister mood of the moment. Meanwhile, the woman exhaled a slow stream of smoke, her confident gaze asserting dominance as she surveyed the scene with intensity. A scroll unfurls to reveal the introduction of Anna, the most notorious information dealer in the kingdom's black market. As a surge of glowing purple energy enveloped the three wild-haired, blindfolded figures, the triumphant man at the center led the transformation, shouting in exhilaration as his companions reacted with frenzy and awe. In the midst of an ominous silence, the mysterious man radiates intense energy as he channels a surge of dark power, his presence overwhelming and fierce. The unknown beast, its eyes glowing with fury, unleashed a guttural growl as it radiated ominous, swirling energy. Suddenly, three monstrous, multi-eyed beasts unleashed a menacing presence, their snarls echoing as purple energy crackled ominously around them. Amid the searing blast of energy, the lone man stood unflinching as monstrous attackers surged toward him, his unwavering resolve clashing against their ferocious hostility. Tightly controlling his conflicting emotions, the bandaged man, shrouded in red energy, attempted to initiate a tense negotiation by stating that he wanted to resolve the situation through conversation. Every time, the determined man unleashed a devastating punch against the monstrous figure, his fierce resolve clashing with the creature's stunned shock. Suddenly, the monstrous beast unleashed a furious, slashing blow against the shocked man, sending a violent burst of energy and blood through the air. With defiant determination, the man charged forward at breakneck speed, insisting that overcoming him would not be so simple. Suddenly, the fierce-looking man with red eyes whirled around, his expression betraying a jolt of realization as he reacted intensely to something wholly unexpected. With a violent surge of energy, one man delivered a devastating strike fueled by rage, while his opponent, caught completely off guard, was left overwhelmed amid the explosive impact and flying debris. In a sudden burst of explosive energy, the dominant man delivered a fierce, glowing kick that sent his shocked opponent hurtling backward into a massive crater. Suddenly, the transformed man crashed down with ferocious power, his monstrous, armored limbs scattering debris as he made a dramatic entrance. Amidst swirling dust and ominous shadows, a lone man crouched in a battle-ready stance, his fierce gaze signaling his determination as he prepared for the imminent confrontation. In the dimly lit space, two towering made an imposing entrance, their menacing presence underscored by a low, ominous exhalation that seemed to signal the tension in the air. With fierce determination blazing in his glowing red eyes, the young man unleashed a devastating dash attack, surging forward through a storm of explosive energy and flying debris. In the mist-shrouded hall, a resolute figure unleashed a devastating vertical energy strike, his determination clashing against the fierce aggression of the two monstrous adversaries preparing to confront the attack. Suddenly, a giant black fist crashes through the surface with explosive force, scattering debris in every direction and unleashing a surge of raw energy. Emerging through the swirling smoke, the commanding man with bandaged arms made a dramatic, menacing entrance that instantly shifted the atmosphere to one of intimidation. As she sat calmly in the steamy room, the woman contemplated their predicament, remarking with a pensive air that the boy was not merely troublesome but also a sorcerer, and expressing uncertainty about their options now that was gone. As the mist thickened around him, the wary man anxiously scanned his surroundings, voicing his concern as he wondered aloud where his vanished opponent could have gone. In the dim, smoky atmosphere, the man bowed deeply and, maintaining a detached tone, explained that as a mere merchant dealing in information, he would provide nothing unless he was paid. In the mist-filled, ancient room, one man assertively initiated negotiations by asking about the price, while the other, caught off guard by the sudden reasonableness, suspiciously questioned the shift in tone. With a calculated air, the confident woman crossed her arms and told the wary man that she would pay a fair price if he provided the information she sought. A street-smart information broker, exuding smug confidence, set the price for personal details and current whereabouts at 10,000 gold, insisting that this was a fair deal. With a somber expression and glowing red eyes, the troubled young man admitted with resignation that he did not possess much, prompting those around him to conclude uneasily that he truly was insane rather than simply misunderstood. A wary, impatient man insisted that no information would be shared unless payment was made, while the cautious figure by the water grew visibly frustrated at the unexpectedly high cost. The towering man confronted the girl with an intense glare, demanding to know if she truly expected to simply pay and wait, and questioning where she thought the money would come from, while the girl stood her ground defiantly despite his challenge. A woman with a sinister smirk confronted someone off-panel, suspiciously questioning their motive for searching for and noting the intensity in their eyes. In the dimly lit space, the direct man bluntly questioned whether was responsible for killing the other's family, his words hanging heavily as the man's wary reaction betrayed a tormented past. Standing defiantly in front of the slightly opened wooden door and illuminated by a harsh light from within, the man irritably told the onlooker to stay out of his affairs, making it clear he intended to shut them out. With fury blazing in his eyes, the man, shrouded in a red and menacing aura, threatened that he would tear his opponent's mouth open. In the dim, smoky chamber, the calm, poised woman turned toward the mysteriously burst door, reacting with intrigued surprise to the unexpected intrusion. With a playful glint in her eyes, the confident girl touched her face and remarked in an amused tone that the person before her was certainly quite bold. The gritty, tense atmosphere of Mercenary Street settles over a group of determined, wary men as they stride purposefully through the narrow, weathered lanes, their presence drawing suspicious glances from hardened locals. At the Mercenary Guild, after the registration was completed, someone eagerly inquired when they would begin receiving assignments, their anticipation matching the promise written on the wooden sign outside. Inside the bustling tavern, the experienced man calmly explained that mercenary jobs tended to be assigned to veterans first, so newcomers would need to wait, and the eager newcomer accepted this with a resolved nod, indicating he understood. At a dimly lit bar, one man sat brooding over his next move, quietly resolving that although making money would take longer than he expected, he needed to find a way regardless, while the other man watched him with wary caution. A menacing man, his face shadowed against a crimson background, contemplated resorting to threats to extract information from the woman. Radiating a sinister energy, the girl ominously warned that there was no advantage in creating needless enemies. With determination in her voice, the girl explained to the attentive man that her aunt had advised her to seek honest work, so she wished to take on mercenary duties as an inexperienced newcomer. Upon hearing the news that the person beside him had just registered as a rookie, the man's intense, red eye widened in alert reaction. The masked bartender, his tone thick with menace, confronted the hooded visitor by asking if someone was truly standing right next to him, while the mysterious figure faced him in wary silence. In the dimly lit tavern, the suspicious man confronted the hooded girl with wary curiosity, while she calmly revealed that she had just registered, intensifying the tension between them. With calm confidence, the man pulled back his hood and assured himself that his task would be straightforward. Her gaze unwavering and filled with resolve, asked that someone watch her back for just one day as she prepared to face what lay ahead. Inside the shadowy bar, a confident man enters and surveys the room with a smug expression, while a masked, ghoulish bartender watches him warily from behind the counter, heightening the tense atmosphere. In the dimly lit tavern, the bartender dismissed the man's job inquiry with irritation, suggesting that only someone crazy would seek such work, while the anxious man quickly tried to defend himself, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. In the dimly lit wooden room, the determined negotiator asserted his desire to hire bodyguards, while the calm respondent readily confirmed that this was indeed the request. As the tense atmosphere lingered, the persistent girl urged the reluctant man to at least hear the job's pay before deciding, but he dismissed her suggestion, stating he had no interest in working for an employer he considered unstable, while the others watched the exchange from inside the warmly lit building. In the dimly lit room, the large, confident man eagerly volunteered for the job, raising his hand as he asked what the pay would be. The intimidating man demanded an unyielding price of 10,000 gold, as the cloaked girl faced him warily, tension thickening the air between them. In the wooden room, the resolute woman informed the frustrated veteran that he could not take on the mission due to his recognizable status, adding that, although she had considered giving it to a rookie, they were simply unfit for the task. Inside the wooden building, the larger, aggressive man seized the smaller figure and angrily insisted that he was superior to any rookie, while the desperate captive demanded to be released and shouted his refusal to comply. A muscular, bald man, visibly irritated, complained about a young lady's ingratitude and then, still frustrated, called out to someone named. In a charged moment, the defiant young man confronted the larger, bald figure with a resolute warning to stay away, leaving the intimidating man momentarily taken aback. Enraged and fiercely protective, the man glared at his opponent with glowing red eyes, threateningly warning that no one should dare touch his precious employer. Amid the carnage, one of the armed aggressors coldly remarked that there was nothing valuable to be found in civilian homes as he stood over the bloodied, defeated man, underscoring the brutal hopelessness of the scene. Amidst the shadows, unseen voices began to deliberate the potential profits of organ extraction, with one suggesting they proceed as they pleased and abruptly shifting the discussion to an urgent request from the previous day. Amid the violent chaos, one figure revealed with tense certainty that their plan involved kidnapping a daughter from the family, prompting another to confirm the plot without hesitation. A menacing figure, exuding authority as the sun sets, commanded his masked subordinate to select only the 3 most skilled men, have them stand by, and ensure they departed immediately after hanging up the designated item. A monstrous figure looms above, its sinister presence palpable as it manipulates the bloodied, powerless man below with dark, controlling strings, forcing him into utter submission. In the dimly lit outdoors, the secretive operative, maintaining a focused demeanor, confirmed that he would immediately put the team on standby. The monstrous figure, exuding a sinister presence, mockingly taunted his victims as he held up a limp body and displayed another corpse hanging from his waist. With a sadistic glint in his eyes, the dominant armored man taunted his collapsed foe by remarking that a single victory over him failed to satisfy his cruel desires. A monstrous, demonic figure surged forward amidst swirling red energy, delivering a malicious threat as it suggested with sinister glee that dissecting its opponent in the same manner would be fitting. With savage intensity, the man bit into the large, bloody piece of raw meat, consumed by primal hunger. A close-up reveals the man bracing himself in silence, his anxious expression and the sweat on his cheek betraying the intense pressure he feels. Suddenly, the tense silence is shattered as the man, overwhelmed by frustration, slams his fist down in anger against the wooden surface. Inside the dimly lit tavern, patrons relaxed in scattered groups, their quiet conversations and subtle glances creating an atmosphere of calm sociability. A calm man behind the counter questioned the visibly distressed girl about her reaction to the food, prompting her to shout back in panic that she could not possibly eat in such a situation. Witnessing the absurd scene, the irritated girl shouted at the indifferent man not to use people as chairs, expressing her outrage at his blatant disregard for basic decency. The girl, her frustration evident as she faced away, insisted that she had no interest in sitting and demanded the man untie her, while he observed her calmly and questioned her intentions. As one man fiercely slammed his opponent into the ground, warning him not to touch his employer, the desperate victim pleaded for mercy, while the observing girl silently noted that the skilled and reliable mercenary was exactly what she had been seeking. Across the wooden table, the intimidating man regarded the other with disdain, remarking with a hint of disappointment that whatever he observed had been soft, which he considered unfortunate, while the anxious man sat silently, absorbing the criticism. At the bar, the serious man folded his arms and, maintaining a professional tone, asked how far his escort services would be required. As the map of the region came into focus, someone explained that they only needed an escort to the border of Kingdom, noting that by crossing through the forest, they should arrive within a day. The man, his expression tense and suspicion clear in his eyes, questioned inwardly why such an exorbitant sum had been offered for a simple escort job, growing increasingly uneasy as he suspected he was becoming entangled in something far more dangerous than expected. As shadows partially concealed his face, the wary man with intense red eyes anxiously considered the possibility that his employer might be hiding something, comparing the situation to that of a noble heir on the run or a criminal fleeing pursuit, and reminding himself to remain cautious despite not doubting his employer's identity. At the wooden table, the confident girl casually revealed with a smug smile that she was simply the only daughter of a somewhat wealthy family, and that her father had a tendency to dote on her, while the wary man listened closely, distrust etched across his face. Feeling disheartened by the other person's growing distance, the girl backed out of her request and stated that if her intentions were truly in doubt, she would simply ask someone else. While one man calmly sipped his drink and insisted that he could never commit such an impious act, the other man glared at him with clear annoyance, silently cursing the defiant demeanor before him. The man, determined to act swiftly, suggested they depart at once, catching the girl off guard as she looked up in surprise and questioned whether he truly meant to leave immediately. With a chilling sense of urgency, the sinister man, his red eyes glowing ominously, declared that he could not afford to waste any more of their client's precious time. A girl, her voice tinged with nervousness, responded hesitantly as she looked upward with apprehension, standing cautiously near the door in the dimly lit room. A vast, foreboding mountain range rises above the endless forest, establishing the remote and imposing setting. Along a tranquil tree-lined path, two men walk in silence, one leading with focused intent, the other following calmly, both surrounded by the soft anticipation of what lies ahead. As they walked through the shadowy forest path, the girl observed with a serious tone that they seemed to be about halfway to their destination, to which the calm, focused man agreed. The girl, her expression wary beneath the hood of her cloak, silently assessed their progress and wondered if hiring a mercenary had been unnecessary, as she hoped their cautious journey would continue safely. As the hooded girl faced the imposing figure in black armor, the man suddenly commanded her to stop, his outstretched arm and commanding tone intensifying the tension in the air. In a tense forest clearing, the alert man asked if there was a problem, only to be calmly silenced by the mysterious hooded figure, heightening the suspense between them. A serious, determined man focused intently, as he sensed and confirmed to himself that the powerful red-hued aura was indeed mana. Blurry dark streaks raced through the dense forest, capturing the tense urgency of unseen groups dashing swiftly between the shadowed trees. The man's expression tightened with worry as he sensed the rapid approach of footsteps, alert to the looming threat. As tension mounted, one alert figure warily realized that not 3 but 4 menacing enemies were rapidly advancing through the forest toward them. Among them, one particularly menacing figure emerges, his powerful presence amplified by an intense red aura as he makes a dramatic entrance. Amid the chaotic, ominous atmosphere, the wild-eyed man, furious and unpredictable, issued a sudden threat as he shouted that peeking was a bad habit and made it clear that he was the most dangerous one present. Suddenly, a massive explosion of blinding red light engulfs the scene, signaling the unleashing of a powerful attack and filling the air with explosive intensity. Suddenly, the man unleashed a surge of unknown power, his wide eyes brimming with astonishment as red energy radiated outward in a dramatic display. Suddenly, a ferocious creature erupts through the magical barrier in a surge of explosive energy, radiating unrestrained rage. With determination, the commanding man ordered his subordinates to capture the girl from the family alive, prompting them to respond with urgent affirmation as they surged into action. Confronted by the menacing black smoke wall, one man reacted in shock, insisting that what they saw was merely a threat and speculating that the true danger still awaited, while the other remained alert and tried to analyze the unfolding peril. Hidden deep within the dense bushes, two men, one alert and cautious, the other anxious and observant, spied intently on their target, tense anticipation etched across their faces. Suddenly, sensing a threat, the red-eyed man snapped his head around with a determined and intense glare. Suddenly, three masked attackers dropped from above with blades drawn, their movements sharp and coordinated as they ambushed the lone, alert man below. With a fierce surge of energy, the dominant man in black unleashed a devastating attack, catching his adversaries off guard and sending shockwaves through the chaotic battlefield. Suddenly, a shadowy man lunged fiercely at the startled girl, while another looked on in shock, the tension in the air reaching its peak. Suddenly, two swords collided midair with explosive force, sending sparks and debris flying as the clash echoed through the intense atmosphere. In a sudden burst of fierce energy, one man delivered a devastating blow that sent his overwhelmed opponent crashing helplessly to the ground. Reacting instinctively, the man let out a startled cry as he dodged the sudden attack, his alertness evident in his tense, agile movements. With furious determination, the muscular man unleashes a devastating energy attack downward, flooding the scene with explosive light. Suddenly, chaos erupts as several characters are violently hurled back into a wall, their faces etched with shock, alarm, and terror amid the swirling debris. As the dust settled over the cracked impact site, the exhausted man collapsed to the ground, exhaling heavily while the anxious girl watched in silence, and the two wary armed men stood guard nearby. With an air of grim determination, the stitched, bandaged man gripped his own cursed arm as swirling dark red energy enveloped his hand, vowing with unwavering resolve that from this moment forward, he would not falter. A man radiating an ominous power stood protectively at the front, his voice firm as he warned those behind him not to step out. As the sinister man radiated ominous strength and released a surge of dark power, the shocked girl on the ground stammered in disbelief, exclaiming repeatedly that she understood. A wary young man, his voice edged with suspicion, confronted the unseen figures in the forest and demanded to know if they were bandits as well. A masked man, exuding menace as he pointed his sword in the forest, demanded that the group abandon the woman and promised they would be allowed to pass unharmed if they retreated quietly. In the heated standoff, one man demanded a ransom of 10,000 gold to walk away while taunting his opponent as a fool, his voice laced with contempt and menace. With fierce determination, one man hurled himself forward in a powerful attack, while his opponent braced defensively in the tense forest clearing. Amid the chaos, two fierce opponents unleashed simultaneous attacks, their determination and aggression erupting in a violent clash that shattered the very surroundings. In a surge of fierce intensity, the relentless fighter unleashed a rapid, destructive assault against the shadowy figures, each blow resonating with violent force and chaos. In a violent clash, two men's bandaged fists collided with explosive force, the fierce aggression of the attacker overwhelming his overpowered opponent amid a chaos of red. In a surge of raw intensity, the fierce-looking man unleashed a devastating punch, his determination radiating with every shattering impact. With a surge of explosive energy, the man's eyes blazed as he unleashed a relentless, rage-fueled assault, each powerful slash filling the air with frenzied violence. With determined urgency, the man races forward at full speed, his every stride reflecting his unyielding resolve. As the two armed men confronted the crouched boy in the misty clearing, one of them skeptically admitted he had been tense, thinking the boy might be a sorcerer, only to express disbelief upon realizing he was just a kid. The man, radiating overwhelming confidence as he manifested his dark energy, reflected that his cautiousness had been unnecessary. Amused by his opponent's blunder, the overconfident man with glowing red eyes silently mocked just how foolish he believed his adversary to be. Suddenly, as a monstrous figure rose before them in a blaze of red light, the two armored men recoiled in shock, instinctively bracing themselves for the imminent confrontation. Amid a violent explosion of force, the fierce and determined man unleashed a devastating energy attack against his unseen opponent. With furious determination blazing in his eyes, the man unleashed a devastating surge of energy that exploded outward, filling the scene with an intense, overwhelming force. Suddenly, a mysterious red light emerges deep within the shadowy forest clearing, casting an ominous glow over the silent trees. Suddenly, a violent red explosion bursts outward through the darkness, unleashing a wave of destructive energy that fills the scene with intense, explosive force. Amid the grim silence, the mountain path is littered with severed limbs and pools of blood, bearing witness to the aftermath of brutal violence beneath a dark, ominous sky. With a cold, disdainful glare, the man strode past the frightened girl cowering on the ground, muttering under his breath that those before him were utterly worthless. Astonished and anxious, the blue-haired girl crouched on the ground, grappling with the realization that her opponent, who appeared even younger than herself, possessed a strength so overwhelming that she wondered in awe how her father might have reacted to witnessing such a scene. In the quiet forest, a man stood in pensive silence while a blue-haired girl gazed up at him, and it was noted that he might have felt both shock and delight had he known what was on her mind. Sorcerers born with rune arts can sense each other's mana, and as the black-haired boy detects a powerful red glow deep within the forest, he reacts with surprise, realizing that the magnitude of mana reveals a sorcerer's true skill. In the quiet forest, the red-eyed man, his gaze wary and skeptical, remarked to himself that he had assumed his foe had fled after hiding for such a long time. Sizing up his opponent with a menacing glare, the man wondered how someone who still looked like a mere brat could possess mana equal to his own, questioning if it was natural talent, and deciding with sinister intent that he should dissect him first. A monstrous creature with a gaping maw and a sinister third eye loomed within a swirling red aura, menacingly taunting the sorcerer by remarking that someone of his caliber must possess exceptional organs. The feared leader known as the Mad Anatomist emerges from the shadows, his sinister presence amplified by the blood-red aura swirling behind his spiked shield, introducing him as the mastermind behind a notorious criminal organization infamous for murder, kidnapping, and human trafficking. Suddenly, the armored antagonist menacingly demanded that the woman be handed over in exchange for a painless dissection, but the defiant protector stood his ground, firmly rejecting the threat as the anxious girl remained behind him. With a deadly resolve, the monstrous man unleashed a blinding red energy blast from his chest, declaring that his opponent would now have to die. As the urgency intensified, the resolute man called out to the girl, prompting her to respond quickly with a startled urgency as they both raced forward. With fury blazing in his eyes, the man confronted her and accused her of lying about being an ordinary merchant's daughter, demanding to know the truth behind her identity. Suddenly, the terrified girl shouted a desperate, stammering response as she looked upward in shock and fear, overwhelmed by the imminent danger swirling around her. In a sudden, aggressive move, the dominant man seized the frightened girl by her clothing and in a harsh tone demanded that she stop making excuses, his threatening presence leaving her visibly intimidated. With defiant resolve, the man unleashed a violent surge of energy, making it clear through his actions and declaration that he had no intention of listening to anyone. Meanwhile, the girl, her eyes blazing with fierce determination, launched herself boldly into the swirling red energy as she charged at her enemy. A furious man, his face contorted with rage and veins standing out, shouted angrily as he hurled an insult at someone ahead. Suddenly, the sinister monster, caught off guard by the unexpected attack, reacted in shock, exclaiming in disbelief at the burst of blinding light. In that moment, the girl's eyes burned crimson as she glowered with an overwhelming, determined energy, unleashing a dark power that filled the air with an ominous intensity. A furious man slammed into the ground, unleashing a devastating explosion of red energy that sent debris flying in every direction. As a powerful figure stood at the edge of a vast, smoking chasm, one of the shocked onlookers stammered in terror, barely able to comprehend the overwhelming display of strength before them. A terrified man, both panicked and furious, shouted at the sinister figure that he had nearly died because of his reckless actions. In a tense moment within the forest, the sharp-tongued, black-haired man demanded to know why the other person was not fulfilling his duty of escorting the woman, his irritation clear in his confrontational tone. In a tense moment, the agile girl focused intently as she dodged a massive, explosive burst of magical energy, revealing her opponent to be a highly skilled sorcerer adept at manipulating mana. A fiercely protective man, his eyes blazing with defiance, realized that the intruder sought to capture his employer alive, and declared with unwavering determination that he would never allow anyone to kidnap her. The man, looming assertively over the startled girl on the ground, confronted her about her attempted assassination, stating that he would overlook her lie for now while the alarmed girl protested, questioning how he could so easily dismiss her act of trying to kill someone. In the shadowy forest, the man gripped the girl's shoulder and sternly instructed her to remain silent, warning that he was about to throw her and ordering her to land quietly and hide as if she were invisible, while the girl, alarmed and confused, stammered that she understood before panicking at the realization of his plan. With fierce determination, the aggressive man, his bandaged hand tightening around the terrified girl's neck, declared that she would not die. As the man raced forward with unwavering focus, the startled girl shouted for his attention, her voice echoing down the stretch between them as the chase intensified. A wounded, frantic man, his silhouette stark against the explosive forest light, cried out in terror as he was drawn helplessly toward the blinding radiance. As the monstrous creature charged forward, radiating red energy and smashing the ground, he furiously demanded to know where his target thought they were running. A powerful explosion erupts, shattering the ground and sending debris flying as the force of the impact reverberates through the scene. As the monstrous figure slammed the panicked man into the ground, he menacingly demanded to know where his opponent thought he was going, making escape seem impossible. With furious intensity, the man unleashed a brutal punch, sending a violent burst of red energy erupting around him. Suddenly, a hand shot out to seize the opponent's ankle, black and red energy swirling violently as the aggressor's dominance left his rival helpless and unable to resist. With unwavering determination, the man unleashed a devastating attack, his movements a blur of red and white energy as he struck down the monstrous, clawed enemy in an explosive display of power. With determination blazing in their eyes, the two men launched a high-speed assault, racing forward side by side as red energy streaked around them, each wholly focused on the impending clash. In the shadowed forest, the vicious, dark-haired man gloated triumphantly to himself that he had landed a decisive blow with full force on his formidable, armored opponent. The man, his eyes blazing with frustration, sensed that something was blocking his attack and struggled to understand the unseen interference. A monstrous man, his fury palpable, threatened his victim by declaring he would tear out their organs before turning his attention to hunting down the woman. With a malicious glint in his eyes, the sinister man issued a chilling promise that something thrilling awaited, his wicked grin revealing sharp teeth as he threatened his unseen target. The Rune of Telekinesis is introduced as a magical emblem that channels mana to manipulate the physical properties of objects, its glowing, clawed form radiating a sense of revelation. A monstrous figure unleashed a blinding telekinetic shockwave from its outstretched hand, the force erupting instantly like a devastating shockwave. Suddenly, the overpowered man is hurled into the wall with such force that a shockwave erupts, sending debris flying and leaving him stunned by the impact. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts outward, unleashing an overwhelming surge of energy that dominates the entire scene. In a surge of raw intensity, the dark, armored figure unleashed a devastating punch that sent shockwaves of energy erupting around his stunned opponent. A fiercely determined man unleashes intense close combat, his every move wrapped in surging telekinetic force. With determined intensity, the man slammed his foot into the ground, sending debris and dust flying in all directions. Suddenly, a massive armored figure delivers a devastating blow to the courageous but overwhelmed man, sending shockwaves through the scene as the impact lands with explosive force. Suddenly, a fierce armored figure delivered a surprise kick, sending his shocked opponent hurtling across the floor in a display of overwhelming dominance. A blinding explosion of energy erupts as an unknown figure releases a devastating attack, filling the scene with intense, overwhelming force. With unwavering resolve, the young man unleashed a swift, forceful punch, his determination evident in every motion. With unwavering determination, the man hurled a devastating blow at the monstrous figure, unleashing a surge of energy that left his stunned opponent reeling from the explosive impact. A surge of determination fuels the hand as it activates a formidable telekinetic shield, radiating intense defensive power. Suddenly, the monstrous armored figure lunged forward with ruthless force, striking at the panicked man who fled desperately through the shadowy forest. Amid the ominous silence of the forest, the intimidating man with red eyes and stitched arms stood ready, his menacing gaze fixed ahead as he braced himself for the confrontation to come. In a tense forest standoff, the confident, red-eyed man smugly declared to his opponent that even though their mana might be evenly matched, his mastery of rune arts placed him on a far higher level. In a tense forest clearing, the scheming man confidently attempted to persuade the imposing armored figure to abandon his current employer, insisting that joining forces with him would be far more lucrative. In the quiet forest, the man boasted with confidence that he would be receiving 10,000 gold from her, his focus fixed on the promise of such a reward. In the open field, the shark-headed armored man burst into mocking laughter, as he scoffed that the payment offer was so insignificant it could easily be made by robbing 2 civilian homes, adding with scorn that the pay was far too low for someone's skill. With a sinister glint in his eyes, the sharp-toothed man proudly boasted about his involvement in every kind of crime: assassination, kidnapping, robbery, and human trafficking, eagerly suggesting that such ruthless work might tempt his listener. The monstrous figure, gloating from the ground, boasted to the distant cloaked man that his aim remained as precise as ever, and taunted him by suggesting he must have enjoyed it too. A lone, shadowed figure, overwhelmed and frustrated, admitted they were laughing out of disbelief and anger at themselves, their silhouette awash in dark red and black tones. As the powerful man stitched, glowing arm unleashed waves of dark energy, one of the armored figures recoiled in shock, barely managing to question what was happening as the ominous force surged forward. Furious and shrouded in a red aura, the man raised his fists and threatened his opponent, declaring with disdain that he resented having to converse with someone he considered so beneath him. A furious man, radiating dark and violent energy, declared with vengeful intent that he had decided to tear his opponent apart so thoroughly they would no longer be recognizable. Furiously launching himself forward, the monstrous man cursed his opponent for failing to seize the chance he had offered. With furious intensity, the lone man unleashed a devastating attack, his silhouette framed by explosive bursts of energy that filled the scene. In a sudden, feral outburst, the transformed man unleashed a monstrous roar, baring his sharp teeth in a menacing display that intimidated all who faced him. Suddenly, a powerful, dark-haired man with fierce determination surged forward, his eyes glowing red, and his entire form enveloped in crackling red energy as he launched a high-speed attack. With unwavering determination, the aggressive attacker unleashed a devastating blow that sent his monstrous adversary reeling, shattering the ground beneath them with a surge of energy. Suddenly, a massive burst of energy erupts, sending red and black shockwaves surging outward in an explosive display of power. With fierce determination, the man unleashed a devastating punch, his energy erupting explosively as he let out a guttural cry of effort. With unwavering determination, the lone man unleashed a powerful, explosive attack upward at the enraged, monstrous enemy towering over him. Suddenly, a monstrous creature with a single glaring eye and gaping mouth erupted onto the scene, its enraged roar sending a wave of terror through the air. In a shocking turn, the masked opponent, reeling from the unexpected and devastating blow, could only stammer in disbelief as the black-clad man's lethal skill left him utterly stunned. Recoiling in agony, the monstrous figure let out a scream, overwhelmed by the searing pain of its grievous wound. Amid the explosive clash, the furious man delivered a devastating punch that sent his stunned opponent reeling, while the latter could only utter a shocked sound in response to the overwhelming force. With unrestrained fury, the man crashes into the ground, sending a shockwave rippling through the air and intensifying the atmosphere. A muscular, fierce man emerged from swirling dark smoke on the battlefield, his fury unmistakable as he furiously declared that he was no longer interested in his enemy's organs, branding him a wicked adversary. Amidst the swirling, ominous red energy, the enraged figure towered over his opponent and furiously declared that this was the consequence for daring to disregard his mercy. Suddenly, a massive red and orange energy beam bursts from the forest floor, sending swirling rings of power radiating through the trees in an intense display. Furiously, the aggressive man unleashed a devastating energy attack and commanded his opponent to vanish completely. A monstrous figure, radiating fierce intensity, channels telekinetic power to unleash a devastating, glowing blood bullet across the scene. A sweeping, mysterious view of pine-filled forests and towering mountains unfolds beneath the cloudy sky, revealing the vast and enigmatic landscape that lies ahead. A devastating beam of energy tore through the forested mountain landscape, unleashing explosive destruction and filling the air with an intense, crackling force. In a blinding flash of energy, the monstrous armored adversary is overwhelmed and disintegrates, while the smaller figure below stands resolute, his determination unwavering in the aftermath of his devastating attack. Recoiling in shock and pain as the overwhelming attack struck, the monstrous figure cried out in desperation, demanding to know why their mana was not the same and how such a thing could be possible. A fierce-looking man, his aura crackling with red energy, demanded to know how his opponent had managed to break through his telekinesis, his voice edged with shock and disbelief. Amazed, the man extended his arm and acknowledged that he and his opponent possessed similar amounts of mana, stunned by this unexpected discovery. A monstrous, demonic figure with glowing red eyes and sharp teeth glared menacingly, furiously taunting its enemy by calling them a fool. As tension crackles in the air, a muscular man charges forward with unwavering determination toward his resolute adversary, who stands ready with a glowing red sword, while a colossal, shadowy monster looms ominously behind them. Suddenly, the monstrous creature with a single red eye recoiled in alarm, its shock evident as it reacted to an unseen threat. Suddenly, the frightened monster recoiled in terror as it sensed an overwhelming surge of mana, internally questioning the source of such enormous power. Furious, the brutal man unleashed a powerful attack against the wall, cursing his opponent as a monster, and declaring that now was the time to strike. With unwavering dominance, the fierce man struck his towering armored opponent and commanded him to fall, his voice echoing amid the burst of energy. In a surge of cold intensity, the merciless man with glowing red eyes executes his enemy, decapitating him as blood and dark energy swirl violently around them. The ominous introduction reveals the Destruction Gauntlet, a monstrous weapon rumored to accumulate mana and unleash devastating power capable of obliterating any matter made of particles, its potential for destruction growing with every surge of energy. In a fierce display of power, the black-haired man unleashed a furious barrage of energy-infused strikes, leaving his opponent overwhelmed and terrified amidst the explosive chaos. With an aggressive surge of energy, the unknown figure forcefully grabbed the weapon, their fist tightening around the staff as tension crackled in the air. A fierce man, radiating dark energy, unleashed a devastating attack that sent his shocked opponent reeling in the background. As a stitched, monstrous hand pressed against the ground, shadowy tendrils unfurled ominously, signaling that the sinister man was unleashing his dark power with malicious intent. In the quiet forest, the man methodically wrapped his arms with bandages, his determined gaze revealing his focused resolve as he prepared for the battle ahead. At the base of the towering stone pillar, the lone man, steeling himself for what lay ahead, announced with determination that it was time to face the next stage. Amidst a violent surge of red energy, a lone man strode forward with an air of overwhelming confidence and dominance, making a powerful entrance that intensified the atmosphere. With a menacing glare against a blood-red backdrop, the fiercely vengeful man suggested to his companions that they should go retrieve their employer, adding with ominous intent that he planned to make them pay dearly.